What is going on, guys? So today I have an incredible Choir of One Fortune's Favor Refurbished build. It's incredibly good for ad clear, survivability, DPS, literally everything. I was using it in Galron and Pantheon. Choir of One is incredibly good for hands, when Galron puts up the hands and the head. For damage, obviously Refurbished and Sniper's Meditation and all that. Unloved is also, I love Unloved, man. Kind of ironic, right? I would recommend Dragonfly and Elemental Honing here. Hatchling is pretty good, but I like Dragonfly a little more. For Choir of One, we have the Onslaught refit here. Obviously, Command Frame 4, best one, and Fortune's Favor. So if you guys did not know, Fortune's Favor, while at full health upon scoring a kill or not receiving damage for 4.5 seconds, grants 6.6 Void Overshield per second until taking damage again. It infinitely refreshes Void Overshield duration. While any kind of Void Overshield is active, grants you plus 25 stability, plus 25 handling, and 15% weapon damage, 20% for heat weapons, which is incredible. There's been a ton of Fortune's Favor builds going on. I saw a Duality one, I saw a bunch of stuff. Like, people are using everything they can with Fortune's Favor. Okay, guys, so I'm going to get into this. So if you're interested in a long, detailed explanation about all the artifact mods, all the buffs, all the debuffs, literally everything, I'm going to get into that, but I'm also going to have like a basic introductory. So I will put a timestamp on the screen now for the basic one if you don't care for the detailed, and then I'll put a timestamp for the actual gameplay after. So if you're still here, let's get into this here. So all the buffs you're gonna get. So for you get amplified from Ascension here. So every time you cast your class ability, jump in the air, press B, you gain amplified. And what amplified does is it gives you 15% damage reduction. Enemies are less accurate to you. You gain plus 40 handling. And sprinting for 2.5 seconds while you have amplified activates speed booster. The next elemental buff you get is Devour, and you get Devour from Power from Pain. So rapid final blows against weakened combatants grant you Devour. In the way that you weaken combatants here is with Threaded Spike, and you're probably like, oh, how do you do that? Threaded Spike is to Sever. We have Singularity Blade here. While you have a Void Elemental buff, which Void Overshield counts, melee and sword hits weaken targets, while melee and sword final blows create a weakening burst. So let me find okay. So the entire thing from Destiny Data Compendium. While a Void buff is active, so for this build, Devour and Void Overshield, melee hits, Threaded Spike, and inflict 15% weaken to all enemies hit for 6 seconds. On melee or sword kill, while a Void buff is active, triggers a weakening burst, inflicting 15% weaken to all enemies within 4 meters, which is incredible. I did say Power from Pain, but I forgot to do that detail a little bit. So upon scoring 3 consecutive weakened enemy kills within 4 seconds of each, you grant Devour for 5 seconds, plus 2.5 seconds each kill. Hits that would have inflicted weaken will also count if they instantly kill an enemy, which is great. So you're always going to have Devour as long as you have your melee. Alright, next we have Void Infestation. Upon killing a weakened enemy, it spawns a tracking projectile that seeks enemies within 15 meters. Projectile deals 87 damage on impact and inflicts a weaken to all enemies that it hits, which is incredible. Reload at range. Upon scoring a precision hit with a bow or sniper, so Refurbished, you grant a stack that which increases your reload speed by each stack you have, which is again great. Precision Equity. So, precision kills grant stacks of precision equity up to 10 stacks. Upon reaching 10 stacks, it consumes all stacks and spawns a massive orb of power that grants you 13% super energy on pickup. And it grants you 2x weapon surge for 11 seconds but it does not overwrite stronger weapon surges. So it doesn't stack if you already had 2 or 3, let's just say, void weapon surges. But because I have 1 void and 1 kinetic on my build, or our build if you're running it, it does. So Sniper Meditation now grants a stack of Sniper's Meditation for 7 seconds. Heavy sniper hits count as 2, so Refurbished. Each stack grants you increased sniper damage, stability, and reload speed by up to 15% damage, plus 40 stability, and plus 45 reload speed. Next one is Press the Advantage. So upon breaking a combatant shield, it grants you plus 20 stability, plus 20 handling, and plus 20 reload speed for 10 seconds. And there is no cooldown. So let's say you break a shield, you gain all of that stuff, and then before you hit the 10 seconds, you break another shield, it'll keep refreshing itself. And I already read Fortune's Favor earlier. Now we're going to get into the Vaulted Glass armor set here. So while you have an elemental buff, so for us it would be Devour, Amplified, Void, Overshield, and Radiant. I will get into that in a second. Upon scoring 5 damage instances, it spawns an orb of power at your feet, therefore triggering Facet of Purpose, which I will also get into in a second, which grants us further Void Overshield, which grants us increased weapon damage, stability, and reload speed almost infinitely because of Fortune's Favor. And of course, 200 weapon stat. I would say you would need at least 160 for this build. At 200 weapon stat, you gain plus 15% increased special weapon damage, 100% large ammo break chance, plus 10% heavy weapon damage. So 15% damage for Choir 1, and 10% extra damage for Refurbished 8499. Now let's get into subclass here. Of course, Tether, because let me find it here. So Tether deals 2,583 damage on impact, inflicting 35% weaken and suppression on all enemies attached to the tether. And that plays into our Refurbished here because of aggregate charge. So this weapon deals more damage for each elemental debuff applied to the target. So weaken is 1, suppression is 1, so our tether is already 2 of those, which grants us 22% increased damage. And we have Sever, which grants us another 11%, so 33%. And I believe that's the max, but we also have Radiance and Transcendence and all that stuff there. So how do we get Radiant in this build, you may ask? That's because of Facet of Dawn here. So powered melee hits against targets make you Radiant. Powered melee final blows make you and nearby allies Radiant. And since we're running Threaded Spike here, Threaded Spike bounces in between, let's say, a dozen enemies, like a bunch, and then it returns melee energy, and yeah, so you gain Sever, you gain Radiance, and you gain Devour just from Threaded Spike here. Of course, we have Ascension for Amplified and new Jolt targets, and Gunpowder Gamble just for that extra damage and ignitions. So I like Facet of Ruin here, just for the plus 10 weapons mainly, but also it kind of plays into our Transcendence Grenade. So it increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen target, and increases the area of effect of solar ignitions. This counts as an ignition, and our Transcendence Grenade can freeze targets and also trigger ignitions. So for Transcendence, when you activate Transcendence, it instantly recharges grenade and melee energy. You gain 5% increased weapon damage, 20% damage reduction because of faster protection here, plus 10% grenade and melee recharge rate while it's active, and Transcendence is 20 seconds at base, but can be recharged slightly per kill by 5 to 15%. So 5% for red bars and 15% for champions. So, what does everything mean here? So, Devour, from killing weakened enemies from Singularity Blade and a Power from Pain, plus 10 to 20% grenade energy per kill while Devour is active, so 10% for red bars, 20% for champions again, and you gain plus 70% health points per kill while Devour is active, so almost infinite health as long as you are killing enemies. and Void Overshield from Fortune's Favor and Facet of Purpose. While you have a Void Overshield, you have 70% damage reduction to that Overshield. Void Overshield can stack with all other Overshield sources such as Facet of Purpose here. And this plays into the armor set. So picking up an Orb of Power grants either Bolt Charge, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. And because we're running Tether here for Weaken Suppression, and we get Overshield from this, it's almost infinitely proccing Fortune's Favor, which grants us an additional 15% weapon damage stability and handling speed and reload, which is crazy. And then, of course, we get Radiant from Threaded Spike here. So, yeah, I believe that is everything for what I wrote down here. Everything that I said is from the Destiny Data Compendium, which, of course, I will link in the description. For the stats here, I like 55 melee, 60 grenade, at least 100. I like 100. It's just a good even number. 80 class, and 200 weapons. So I would say weapon stats definitely most important. Super second most important. And I'm kind of in between melee and grenade here. Of course, we want a high melee stat because we're weakening enemies, getting radiance, severing targets with our melee. That's also why I have a melee font. So my melee is really 75 and my grenade 60, 105 super, 80 class, and 200 weapons, which is pretty good. Pretty much exactly where I want it. So for our mods here, I'm running 2 special ammo finders, but I'm never almost getting low on ammo, so you could just replace it with a dynamo, and if you find yourself getting low, you can just add another special ammo finder here. I really like a Void Loader for just reloading Choir of One really quickly, a melee font, and you grant class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack, which is almost always all the time, and when you use Ascension, also grants you melee energy. So you're almost infinitely proccing Threaded Spike and Ascension here. Any resistance mods you need here, I think I was running Birthplace with a Vial on Ultimate, so I was running Solar and Void with a Concussive Dampener. Of course, your Void Weapon Surge for Choir of One. I would recommend a Kinetic Weapon Surge for Refurbished and a Harmonic Scavenger. So Void weapons get bonus reserves when picked up ammo used by that weapon. And of course, just the Reaper, Powerful Attraction, and Time Dilation. That's just a typical. You could probably switch this up for a distribution, so it reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets, which plays into Dynamo a little bit, but I think I like Reaper a little bit more. So yeah, guys, let's get into the gameplay here, and I hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching. Alright guys, so I'm assuming most of you are here for the basic explanation, so let's just run through that very quickly. So Refurbished, of course, for aggregate charge, snapshot sights, flared mag. If you have accelerated assault, that'd be even better. Choir of One with the Rampage refit. Definitely recommend getting Command Frame 4. If you need somebody to run Encore with, of course, my Bungie user will be in the description as always for Encore, Volatile Glass, Dual Destiny, whatever you guys need. Unloved, I like Dragonfly, Elemental Honing. These are the artifact mods: Reload at Range, Power from Pain, Press the Advantage, Singularity Blade, Precision Equity, Sniper's Meditation, and Void Infestation. This is a subclass, of course. Tether, I like Gambler's Dodge, Triple Jump, but it's of course your choice of jump here. Threaded Spike, a Grapple Grenade, Ascension, Gunpowder Gamble, Facet of Dawn, Facet of Purpose, Facet of Protection, Facet of Hope, and Facet of Ruin. Of course, Fortune's Favor for the increased weapon damage while you have a Void Overshield, and the main thing about this build is that we're almost always going to have a Void Overshield because of the Volatile Glass armor set. So while you have a subclass buff, dealing sustained damage creates an overpower. Plus we have a kinetic siphon, a Void Siphon. So we're almost always going to have Orbs of Power at our feet, continuously proccing Void Overshield, so continuously proccing the damage bonus from Fortune's Favor. These are the mods that I'm running. I like 1 or 2 special ammo finder depending on the content you're running, Harmonic Siphon, Dynamo, Void Loader, Melee Font, Focusing Strike, any resistance mods you need. Harmonic Scavenger, Kinetic Weapon Surge for Refurbished 8499. Void Weapon Surge for Choir of One. Reaper, Powerful Attraction, and Time Dilation. Alright guys, so let's get into the video. Thank you again for thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the support recently. And yeah, let's get into it.
Cryptoglyphs drain too.
Alright guys, so thank you for watching until the end. Rewatching, I did realize I messed up a little bit. This is not Rampage, this is an Onslaught refit. That is very important. Um, but yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of the support. Again, as always, my Bungie username will be in the description. Some more details will be in the description. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic day.